That freeze is just
Oh,
beautiful.
nice.
Dang, it's taking me forever to load it. Did you guys kill it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. What did we get?
Is Path of Exile a good multiplayer game? Well, whether or not Path of Exile is a good multiplayer game is subjective. For one person, it might be good. For another person, it might be bad. And we'll talk about these opinions in just a moment. In my opinion, Path of Exile's multiplayer experience is Aladdin. It's good. It's pretty good in my opinion, but it does have its sore spots for me. And I think that the worst part about the Path of Exile experience is the difficulty in finding good teammates. That's my opinion. But we'll talk about my opinion a little bit more in just a moment. Let's look at other people's opinions first. So I'm going to pull up the background here. Let's get the script out of the way. So when you Google search Path of Exile multiplayer, you get some results here like does it have multiplayer? How does it work? Is it couch co-op? And then is Path of Exile a good multiplayer game? Okay, well there's obviously other people searching for an answer to this question. Let's talk about it in this video. But let's see what this person has to say. Path of Exile has not been multiplayer friendly for years. For years it has been laggy and clunky to map in a party, but since the addition of stuff like incursions, etc., there's just no point to map together with someone unless you magic find. Now, I would like to remind you that that's just one person's opinion, and whether or not something is good is subjective, and anecdotal evidence is exactly that. It's anecdotal. Let's keep that in mind as we look at the other results. So we're going to look at some other posts here. So if I scroll down, I can find other results from Reddit, and we can find other results from pathofexile.com. Okay. So when we look through the results on Reddit, I've gone through some of these. I've picked a couple just from the top 3, as you can see here, and from Path of Exile's official website, which is moderated by their forum mods. I've picked a couple directly from their website as well. Let's get into the first one. So, multiplayer and Path of Exile. I really love this game. I mean, to the point where I feel like I'm recruiting people into a cult when I talk about it. I've been playing Path of Exile since, I think, just after it released. So that's a long time. It's almost 10 years. And for the most part, I have been playing steadily with new leagues since then. Despite this substantial time with the game and countless hours of enjoyment I've had, the multiplayer just kind of sucks. And so they go into some details here. They say, you know, some people just play solo self-found as a result, but, you know, you don't want to play solo self-found to solve a problem of multiplayer sucking. You want to actually play multiplayer. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, and I'll leave a link to this comment down below if you want to read the rest of what this person had to say. Here's another one. This one's got 56 upvotes. This one only has 7, but it's recent. It's only 9 months ago. Multiplayer and Path of Exile and their opinion. And for the rest of this video, I need to kind of remind you, these are all opinion pieces, including my own. Hello, everybody. And he says, Diablo 3 was a lot of fun. I remember those days with me and the boys waiting every league to start grinding together. We played Crematorium. Then they talk about the league mechanics. And come on, everybody needs to grind hard solo to progress in the way the league is now, like Harvest, Delirium, Metamorph, Synthesis, and Betrayal. Heist is the next thing. My old guild is still frustrated, so they're basically saying that there's an issue. I understand that there are some no-life players that would benefit from too much buffing multiplayer, but that is the smallest part of PoE. Here, the game is going somewhat in the wrong direction, they think, with these league mechanics that only reward one player out of the group, and I kind of agree with that. Let's say, for example, you're running Harvest, and you know, only the person who's hosting the map gets to benefit from the Harvest, really, unless they have people trading with them, but the amount of coordination needed to do that is a little bit high for just like an average pickup group, you know, like saying, hey, I have the ability to change blue and green sockets. Who needs blue and green sockets on their gear? Like, you know, that's difficult to do. But so there's a shared responsibility between both the developers and the players to solve these problems. So the developers can try solving the problems by coming up with better gameplay mechanics that make multiplayer easier. But whether or not they need to do that is up for question, because the fact that it is difficult leaves room for players who are in good organized teams to come out on top and to perform better and to actually benefit from being well organized. If the difference between a random pickup group and a well organized group is nothing, then what's the incentive and what's really the good benefit and the reward you get for being in a well organized team? Right? So it's a tricky question, it's a tricky subject, and there's a shared responsibility between the developers and the players on how to solve these problems. So that's enough from Reddit. I know that there's some people that think of Reddit's Path of Exile subreddit as a really toxic community, so we'll just move on to the actual Path of Exile community now. This person said, in 2020, so last year, I stopped playing Diablo a long time ago. I hated the Paragon system, but they're going to say here, say what you will, there was nothing better than mindlessly slaying demons with 3 other guys in multiplayer and greater rifts. I love PoE, but without some kind of party play, there is something missing. So, he's making a point. It's kind of hard to see his point because if you haven't played Diablo, you're not really going to know what exactly he's talking about. In Diablo 3, they scale the enemy's health a lot more, and it slows the players down, and players can then set up plays to take enemies down. Like you can have a tank suck the enemies up, and then somebody can drop a nuke down on the enemies. Now, keep in mind, I'm saying what I just said based on what I've read in the comments and from my Google searching on this subject. I don't actually play Diablo 3. I only played when it very first came out, and I was disappointed that it wasn't a true spiritual successor to Diablo 2. I told you this video was going to be an opinion piece. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. So this person has a very robust post with lots of details in it, but I'm going to focus on one thing in particular. I find it's right here. Some people just zoom ahead and kill my map on their own, which defeats the fun of group play for me. And I completely agree. That's my biggest issue with multiplayer and Path of Exile. I'll be hosting a party, someone will join, they'll rush ahead, you'll have 2 people that do massive amounts of DPS, they're competing with one another to kill things, and since they're so hungry for kills, they start splitting off, and one person's going in this direction, another person's going in that direction, this guy's soloing the ultimatum, everybody else is hitting the pause screen every 30 seconds, and it's just chaos, and everybody's just looking out for what makes them satisfied and not cooperating. This isn't necessarily a flaw on the developer's behalf. This is something that players need to deal with when you're playing a cooperative game or a multiplayer game, and you need to cater your group to people that you want to play with, that you enjoy playing with. Okay, let's get to the notes here, and we'll go to my opinion here. So, here's some of my observations with Path of Exile multiplayer. If you're playing with random people, you might get people that speak another language. That makes it difficult to cooperate with them, or you get people who are just plain uncooperative. For example, people who will activate the ultimatum before everyone else arrives. They get all the loot, nobody else does, and everybody else is getting the freeze screen every once in a while for nothing, for that one person's selfish benefit. You know what you do with those people? You kick them out of your team. That's what you do. Plain and simple. So players have the tools to solve that. Another thing I want to point out, though, is that the developers intentionally have included some PvP in the game, like way back when they had a league where you could PvP people in random, just where any instance you went into. But they also had in Act 2, when they first created Act 2, the ability for you to betray and backstab your teammates when you're helping or killing the bandits. One person in the party can choose to help the bandits, another person can choose to kill the bandits, and suddenly you've got a PvP scenario where one person is getting screwed over. And this is an important part that's integrated into Path of Exile. The developers haven't taken that out of the game, and I think that's a good thing to keep in the game. It makes a statement. Part of the game is being a ruthless, cutthroat, selfish person who's just seeking power, even if it means screwing other people over. And it's up to you to decide if you want to cut those other players out of your experience by having a private group or playing solo, or risking that situation by playing with random people. It's part of the experience. It's part of the experience of dying on bosses, of losing experience, of losing items in Heist League. This is part of the game, and it's like that on purpose. Does it make the multiplayer suck? It sucks for a moment, but you have the tools to solve these problems. So don't just blame the developers, but hey, the developers aren't off the hook, because it's a shared responsibility between them and the players to make the experience fun and enjoyable. Okay, let's move on to another point here. So I gave an example of some of the things that kind of suck about it. People splitting off in different directions. Some people prefer to go faster. Some people prefer to go slower. And I'll talk about now one of the best league mechanics that they put into the game that addresses this issue, and that's Breachstones. Breachstones are fantastic. They solve so many of the problems that I think a lot of people have had with multiplayer in Path of Exile, and I think it's one of the reasons why Breachstones are so popular in multiplayer in Path of Exile. I mean, for one, they're very rewarding in terms of experience, but they do solve a lot of these issues. For one, Breachstones set a hard limit on how fast you can do them. You can't go any faster than the wave of the breach, and if you go too slow, you might fail the breach, and then you lose out on valuable experience as well as the cost of starting it. So this creates this narrow window where everybody wants to be close together, so that you're all getting the experience, and it's sort of like a racetrack. You just run along the racetrack, and it limits the super fast players to only going as fast as the wave. It's fantastic. It's a really good mechanic, and I think that this is a great way to sort of put these railroad tracks down that locks the multiple players together in the same area and working together cooperatively. Number two, there are no ultimatums or sulfite veins or other league mechanics in a breach. It's just a breach. It's just a meat grinder. You're being fed enemies, and you just got to keep up with the pace and just killing enemies. It makes it simple. It doesn't require complicated coordination between your teammates. You just stick together and kill stuff and move forward. That's it. That's fantastic. So the fact that breaches are simple is one of the other good things that make them good for multiplayer. And the last one is trade. Breaches are kind of expensive, and you end up with people working cooperatively to do pure Chayula runs, or players giving each other fragments or blessings and things like that to get the most value out of their breaches. And this adds another layer of cooperative gameplay beyond just synergizing your abilities to kill demons and monsters. You now are working together on an economic or financial level as well, and that's just really cool. I love that in Path of Exile. Okay, so that's pretty much the video. I'm going to finish off with 3 tips that I have come up with for myself for improving the multiplayer experience. Number 1, if no one is hosting a party that you want to be in, start your own. Simple as that. Start a party, post it up on the board, make it public, make a name, and people will join the party, and you can find friends to play with. Number 2, copy and paste a welcome message. So whenever someone joins the party, you can paste the message into chat, and in that message you can explain what people can expect from your party. For example, I've begun telling people that if they rush too far ahead, they'll get kicked from the party. Number 3, don't be afraid to kick people. It's just something that has to be done from time to time, and it's not only for your own enjoyment, but for the other people in your party as well. So if you get somebody who joins, and let's say they don't speak English, and they don't understand what's happening, or for whatever reason it's not a good fit in the group, you got to kick them out. Like, it's as simple as that. You got to kick them out, set it to private if you have to, or whatever you need to do. But this is what I mean by the tools being available to the players to solve a lot of the problems on their own. And then the 4th tip I have here, I said 3 tips, I've got 4 tips here. The 4th tip that I have here is add people to your friends list. So you can, be as selective or as inclusive as you want. You can only add people that you really like to your friends list, for example, or you can add just about anybody who played with you to your friends list, and then remove people if you find out that you don't like them after a while. You handle it however you want to, but it definitely helps with building a network of players that you can play with in the future. And that's it. That's this video on Path of Exile's multiplayer experience. I hope you liked it. If you have any tips for this for multiplayer, or if you have a different opinion on Path of Exile's multiplayer, leave a comment down below. Please remember to be civil, and it might help the next person who stumbles along this video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye. Number 2, copy and paste a welcome message. So whenever somebody joins the party, you can